we have just stepped through the door of the organized shadow government. The Illuminati and the secret societies we uncovered in Chapter 1 did not fade into history. They adapted. They evolved. And their greatest achievement was handing the keys to global control to one family that would turn money itself into the ultimate weapon. This is Chapter 2, where the eternal web we are unraveling becomes visible in its modern form. The same networks of influence, the same view of ordinary people as mere cogs in a machine, now found their perfect instrument: finance. Once the money supply is controlled, everything else follows. Governments, wars, economies, lives. The elites who treat us as disposable tools understood this long ago. And no family executed that understanding more ruthlessly, more effectively than the Rothschilds. The evidence is overwhelming. The hidden hand has been exposed. In the late 18th century, Meyer Amschel Rothschild, a coin dealer and money changer in Frankfurt's Jewish ghetto, devised a master plan that would change the course of history. He did not seek mere wealth. He sought monopoly over the very lifeblood of nations: credit and currency. He trained his 5 sons, Amschel, Salomon, Nathan, Carl, and James, to operate as a single, unbreakable unit. Each was dispatched to a major European capital: Frankfurt, Vienna, London, Naples, Paris. They communicated in code, moved money faster than any government could track, and, most crucially, funded both sides of every major conflict. This was no accident. It was strategy. By lending to opposing armies, kingdoms, and revolutionaries, the Rothschilds ensured that whoever won, the debt, and therefore the leverage, remained theirs. The Napoleonic Wars became their proving ground. Nathan Rothschild in London financed Wellington's British forces, while his brothers supported Napoleon's campaigns through back channels. When news of Waterloo reached London ahead of official dispatches, Nathan used that knowledge to dominate the stock exchange. Not through deceit alone, but through superior information networks the Rothschilds had built. The family emerged from the wars wealthier and more powerful than any single nation. The Rothschilds pioneered international banking on a scale never seen before, moving gold and credit across borders faster than armies could march. They became the primary lenders to governments, turning sovereign nations into perpetual debtors who paid interest on money created out of thin air. Their system ensured that peace dividends went to bankers, while war costs were borne by the people: taxes, conscription, suffering, all to service the debt. By the early 19th century, the Rothschilds were no longer just bankers. They were the puppet masters. Kings borrowed from them to fight wars. Revolutions were funded to install favorable regimes. Empires rose and fell on their credit lines, and the crown jewel of their achievement came in 1913, the creation of the Federal Reserve System in the United States. The Federal Reserve was never a government institution. It was, and remains, a private banking cartel modeled on the European central banks the Rothschilds had already mastered. It gave a small group of private bankers the power to create money from nothing, lend it to the U.S. government at interest, and control the nation's entire economy. America, the land of the free, became a debt-based colony overnight. The same pattern repeated worldwide. Central banks in every major nation, all interconnected, all ultimately answering to the same families and networks that had perfected the model. The Federal Reserve did not appear out of thin air in 1913. It was meticulously planned in secret years earlier. In November 1910, 6 of the most powerful bankers and politicians in America boarded a private railroad car under assumed names and traveled to Jekyll Island, Georgia, a secluded resort owned by the wealthiest elites of the era. There, in absolute secrecy, they drafted the blueprint for the Federal Reserve System. The 6 men were Paul Warburg, the German-born Kuhn-Loeb banker, whose family had deep ties to the Rothschild banking dynasty in Europe; Nelson Aldrich, Republican senator and chairman of the National Monetary Commission, whose daughter married John D. Rockefeller, Jr.; Frank Vanderlip, president of National City Bank, predecessor to Citibank; Henry Davison, senior partner at J.P. Morgan and Company; Benjamin Strong, vice president of Bankers Trust, later first governor of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York; Piatt Andrew, assistant secretary of the Treasury. For 9 days, they met in private, hammering out the Aldrich Plan, the direct ancestor of the Federal Reserve Act. Paul Warburg, the intellectual force behind the scheme, brought the European central banking model straight from the Rothschild playbook. The entire meeting was deliberately hidden from the public and from Congress. When the men returned, they presented their plan as a reform to stabilize banking, never mentioning the secret island summit. The Aldrich Bill failed in 1911 amid public outrage over banker control, but the same insiders simply rebranded it as the Federal Reserve Act and passed it in 1913 under the cover of the Christmas recess. This was no accident of history. It was the bloodlines we have been tracking. Through Warburg's Rothschild connections, Aldrich's Rockefeller ties, and Morgan's empire, quietly installing the mechanism that would turn America into a debt colony and give private bankers unconstitutional power over the nation's money supply. The Jekyll Island meeting is the smoking gun that proves the Federal Reserve was never created for the people. It was designed by the same elite families and their agents to centralize control, engineer booms and busts, and harvest the labor of generations. The same bloodlines that funded both sides of every war now held the keys to the U.S. economy. The dots connect perfectly. Let this sink in gently, but deeply. The elites who see us only as cogs in their machine did not need armies to conquer the world. They needed control of money. And once they had it, they could engineer crashes to buy assets cheaply, inflate currencies to erode savings, and force governments to borrow endlessly, ensuring that ordinary people work lifetimes just to pay interest on debts they never voted for. This was never about ethnicity or religion. It was about power. Pure, unyielding power. The Rothschilds and the bloodlines aligned with them became the visible face of the invisible web. They funded the very revolutions that claimed to liberate people, only to install new debt systems in place of the old ones. They turned humanity's labor into collateral for their endless expansion. Let's go deeper into the Bolshevik Revolution. Many scholars point to New York banker Jacob Schiff, a German Jewish immigrant and Wall Street titan, as a key financier. They cite Russian investigator Nikolai Sokolov's 1920s White Russian report claiming Schiff funneled millions to Lenin and Trotsky, even allegedly instructing the liquidation of the Romanov family. Schiff, tied to Rothschild-aligned networks, saw the Tsar as a threat to global finance. Germany sent Lenin back in his sealed train to destabilize Russia. A war strategy. But the real money? That's where the theories land on Schiff and the Rothschild orbit. Sokolov testified that Schiff ordered the Romanovs killed. A handful of New York bankers, linked to London finance, saw communism as a tool to smash old monarchies and open markets. Elite opportunism. Look at the funding. Look at the outcome. Global debt. Centralized control. People are just used as pawns. We don't need to prove every whisper. We just need to see the pattern. Wars funded on both sides. Revolutions backed by hidden capital. Nations remade into debtors. Whether Schiff or Rothschilds directly pulled strings, the result was the same. Power concentrated, suffering distributed, humanity treated as collateral. And the most sobering truth is this: the system they built never stopped growing. It adapted. It went global. It became the foundation for everything that follows. This is how one family, and the networks behind them, bought the world. This is the moment the eternal web tightened its grip on global finance, turning sovereign nations into debtors and ordinary people into lifelong servants of interest payments. And because this financial empire demands absolute obedience, any nation that refuses to join becomes a threat that must be eliminated. With the world's money supply now locked in their grip, the bloodlines needed to crush any country that dared resist their central bank slavery. That brings us to the holdout nations, the last free countries still fighting for their survival. Their story is our next chapter, because their resistance proves just how ruthless this system truly is. Stay with us. This is only part 2 of 8. The full truth is coming, and it's bigger than any of us imagined. Follow us for more unfiltered truth on Rumble, X, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Links are in the show notes. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single moment. We're in this together. The light is breaking through. See you in the next chapter.